The dumb things I did when I was a kid. The dumb things I did when I was a kid.
The dumb things I did when I was a kid.
My name is Doug, and I did dumb things when I was a kid.
My name is Zerb, and I have done dumb things when I was a kid.
And we are talking about those dumb things on this podcast, which we affectionately call The Dumb Things I Did When I Was a Kid, parentheses, and a few of the smart ones too. Zerb, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing really well. It's been a beautiful change into spring finally.
That's what I understand. We don't actually have spring. You had asked where I am. You thought I was up in Sacramento or San Diego. I'm actually in the Bay Area of San Francisco. And to me, we basically have kind of fall and kind of spring with a couple of hot and cold days mixed in, but we don't really. Yeah. And as an Ohioan, it's really even hard to call what is winter here. Winter. So, so we haven't really thawed out or anything, but you folks have, and I've seen some pictures and happy for that for you.
Thank you. It's nice to see a lake out there instead of a giant sheet of ice. And the fishing pole is waiting to go in. Actually, this past weekend was the first day of fishing season, which I'm not used to a first day of fishing season. I'm used to being go fishing when you feel like it. In Virginia, there's really no off season. And the difference up here is $20 for a license versus $5 down in Virginia. So I have to save up for my fishing license.
Well, I understand the zeal to go fishing. Actually, I don't, because I despise fishing. And I may even have a couple of dumb stories about fishing, but it's just not for me. But there are some dumb things you can do with a sheet of ice. There are some dumb things that I have done with a frozen over pond. And I don't even know if I can say I did this as a kid. As a college student, I walked across a frozen pond in 50-degree weather one day. My. Yeah, we had a little pond on our campus. And when I say it was 50 degrees, it had been 50 degrees for some time. And the ice was just barely there. And I decided to see if I could make it. And I made it, but every step of the way, you hear crack, 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 and guys were watching me, waiting for me to fall in. But so I don't know if that's a stupid thing or not. I did make it,
but really, because you survived. If you didn't make it, that was a stupid thing.
Yeah, if you succeed, if you live, it's not dumb.
It's a
if
success.
You fail or die, it is. So, well, hey, I want to comment a little bit. First of all, thanks to everyone for listening to the first episode, which was just an introduction. We didn't get into too many stories of the dumb things we did as kids because we were describing our neighborhoods, the setting for these dumb things. We did get many downloads, though. I was very, very surprised because, as I told you, we don't have a movie title or a TV show or book title or toy or anything that anybody might search for. I don't think there's too many people saying, hey, what are dumb stories that Doug and Zerb are telling each other, and there's no way to search for that, but we got quite a few downloads from your friends and mine, I believe, and so hopefully this will spread out a little bit. But I wanted to make a comment. First of all, apparently you cannot find us on iTunes if you search the entire title of the show. If you search The Dumb Things I Did When I Was a Kid, you have to instead search Dumb Things. And my only guess there is that I was lazy or tired or operating quickly or whatever, and I gave the feed a much shorter title. So if you're listening to us now, that information probably won't help you, but we were told that people couldn't find us on iTunes when they were searching the entire podcast title. So just Dumb Things on iTunes will help you there. Also, Zerb, I wanted to make a comment about the title is singular. There are two of us. And yet the title is not The Dumb Things We Did When We Were Kids, but The Dumb Things I Did When I Was a Kid. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that this podcast originates out of an outline for a potential book that I created a couple years ago where I was going to record these stories in book form, put it on Amazon eBooks. And I have such little opportunity to write, and I'm such a slow writer that I just decided that will never happen. And we might as well do it in a podcast format. And I need somebody to contribute and help me out a bit here. And you were gracious enough to do that. So that's one reason. the other reason that it's singular is that because it keeps the meter. So if you think about that, our show title is actually in iambic pentameter. The dumb things I did when I was a kid. If we pluralized it, it would be the dumb things we did when we were kids. And
it just...
Yeah, even though nobody talks in
kills the
Shakespearean iambic pentameter today, you can't hear the difference. We lose the indefinite article a by pluralizing it. So for the sound, for the feel, we thought it was best to just keep it singular like that.
And also on top of that, being a musician, you have a tempo to it for a 3/4 time song, such as the dumb things I did when I was a kid. The dumb things I did when I was a kid. It just fits better.
Absolutely. And that is... That's something that I do kind of instinctively. I was in a college class one time. We had to write poetry, and I had never. I remember talking about iambic pentameter in elementary, or not elementary school, probably high school, but I didn't pay much attention. I got through high school on C's. They had to pass somebody, I think, or I was at least smarter than some of the other students. So
get the kid who's hanging out the door window.
Yeah, the guy who's hanging out the door window was
Send him
was
ahead.
at least smarter than some people. But so in college creative writing class, I wrote a poem. I turned it in, and the students are critiquing it. And one of the girls was like, "You have lovely meter here. Was that intentional?" And I said, "Well, what's meter?" And I think that answered their question.
Hardly knew her.
Yeah. So
Man.
so that's a little bit about the show title and how you can find us, why it is singular and not plural. But as we move into the show itself, Kevin, I wanted you to pick our topic for today, and you picked train stories. So I gave you a whole list. I have broken down all my stupid stories into categories, and one of those categories was train stories. As we described our neighborhoods last week, I said that there was a very large train yard. It was actually, I think, a big switching station just north of our neighborhoods. In fact, there's an industrial part north of our neighborhoods that really ends southwest Columbus. You go further north than that, and you're West Columbus. So the distinction between southwest, since Columbus is a circle, you don't just have north, east, south, and west. You have southeast, southwest, etc. Right. So our neighborhood, no corners, and our neighborhood on the north end ended with this very huge train yard switching station. I have some stories from that yard. You also have some stories about trains or train yards or something to that effect. Dumb things that you did as a kid around trains. Am I correct?
Yeah, for me to go to a real train track, we had to go up to Pennsylvania. My dad used to take me camping to Indian Acres, and that's where we would see the train tracks, and I've done stupid things there. In my hometown in Arlington, Virginia, we had the Metro, the DC Metro, which probably came around, I think, at the earliest, like 1981 through 1984, sometime in there. I was 11 to 14. And dumb things has happened there as well, just because the tracks were accessible before they fenced them all off. And, you could do dumb things. Now, the thing that is dumb about a metro, especially not having it fenced off, is that third rail. The third rail is the electricity for the entire thing. And us as kids, I mean, you watch movies and you think, hey, I'm going to put my ear to the tracks and see if it's coming. You get too close to that third rail and you're an electrocuted pile of goo. And luckily that never happened to any of us. But, we've had some experiences on those tracks as well. So should I just go ahead and dive into something for you?
Well, yeah, I would like you to elaborate on that a little bit, tell you some of your stories. But first of all, again, to highlight the fact that, I'm still not that much more intelligent than I was back in those days. I was about to ask you, did you ever touch the third rail? Which I guess obviously not, impossible. Right?
It's impossible because they have a huge cover on it, but it's sort of like if you look at a tub of butter and then there's the lid on it, take away the sides, and then that's what and then the butter's all hanging out on the side. That's what the third rail is like. So it is possible to get to it. but it does have a cover on it so that when things fall on it from above, or if a bird decides to land on it, it's not going to go and then just disappear and disintegrate.
Okay.
So I've seen the third rail. I've thrown things at the third rail when I was a kid.
Oh my goodness.
Just to see what would happen.
I am terrified of electricity. I'm terrified of anything that can strike without warning and you have no ability to fight back. I think we've talked about that. That's why I'm not as afraid of a lion or a bear as I am of a shark. I mean, theoretically, and I know it's theory, but theoretically, you have some chance against a lion or a shark, or a lion or a bear. I don't think you have any chance against a shark. You have no chance against lightning. So this talk of third rail, we do have a third rail on BART, which is our Bay Area Rapid Transit. I imagine it's much pretty close to your metro there. But I tell you, nothing dumb or fun has ever happened on the BART. The first time, and I've been told not to call it the BART. There's no definite article. It's just BART. I always call it the BART though. The first time Hot Pink Heather and I rode BART, we just thought it was great. Wow, we're in San Francisco. We're riding the public transit. This is awesome. And we couldn't figure out why everybody looks so miserable. After having ridden the BART several times over the past 8 years now, yep, I know why everybody's miserable riding BART. Nothing fun. No dumb stories to tell. But you have some dumb, fun stories to tell about Metro. Cut loose, my friend. I want to hear the dumb things that you did as a kid around trains.
You could buy one ticket and you would put your money in the machine and it would spit out the ticket, and you didn't have to up it or down it for different locations when it first started out. So if you hear music playing, that's my cat in the window.
That's
playing a toy piano. Just in case the listeners want to know who the maestro is, that's Jerry the cat. But
yeah, and we don't edit on McCoy Cast. If there's a phone ringing, if there's a baby crying, we go with it. So
it's all
there you go,
of the
Jerry.
Show. Thank you, Jerry, for making a. Now he's on his back looking at me all cute. So we would get a ticket. We would jump on the tracks. We would jump on the train, and you could go anywhere you wanted. And what we loved to do was wait until the last possible moment to jump back into the train before the doors would automatically slide shut. And those who are from D.C. might recognize this. Bing bong.
Doors closing on the right.
And then all of a sudden, the doors would start closing, and we would jump as fast as we could, cause them to stop. People get ticked off because we've delayed. Doors would back up again.
Please stand away from the doors.
And we're like, do it again, do it again, do it again. So we would run again and crash into the door, or get stuck in between, and smacking the chest.
Please step away from the doors.
And that would go on for a couple minutes until they finally, threatened us with, police visitation. So we would have to quit.
Yeah.
And, at 44, you're not supposed to do that. No, I'm kidding. It was probably, what was I? That would have been around 12, 13 years old. Train tracks, hitting the tracks, like walking on the tracks themselves.
Now, is this the metro tracks or the?
This is still the metro tracks. We would, because you could take the bike trail. There's bike trails all over Arlington, Virginia, and we would take that out to the furthest reaches of, oh gosh, I got to think of a town, probably towards not really. I can't remember the towns. It's been a long time since I've been down to Virginia. The towns along the tracks. We'll just say East Falls Church Metro. We'll go there. East Falls Church in Virginia. So if you go down a little bit, there's an open area before they started closing it all up with the fencing. And we used to walk along that and have fun, skipping across the wood. And we were like, this is 11, 12, and 13. And walking across and not realizing that at any second, if our foot decides to kick over to the right, again, pile of goo on the side of the track. Never thought about that. And these were open areas, and you weren't supposed to be down there. It's not like, you were allowed to go in that area, but we did anyway because it was a shortcut back to the part of the bike trail that we needed to get back onto. And we had our bicycles in some cases. It was like Stand By Me. It's just going home with our bicycles in hand and just walking across, and never thought about third rail danger at all, just living free. Ugh. And I think that's mighty stupid because our lives could have ended in a half a, I'll just, I had a friend there, we'll say his name was Snoopy. We're going to, aliases will be cartoons. So Snoopy was with me, And any second, it'd be like, hey, Snoopy, how you doing? Good. Yeah, it's been a long day, man. That's Snoop. Snoop, get up. And that would have been it. So we survived that, thank God, which is great.
Is the incredible. Now, again, let me jump to modern day, because I was a skater for a while and took quite a few shots to the pavement. I was a martial artist. I do have a little scar under my lip where I was kicked in the mouth. I took punishment as a kid, a teen, even a 20-year-old. Nowadays, I watch guys doing parkour on TV. Daredevil came out. So the new Marvel Netflix series Daredevil's out. And I'm sitting there and these guys are getting pummeled to the ground and my body like flinches. I feel like that twinge of adrenaline. Like. Yeah. As I'm watching TV, and it's like, how did I become so soft? Because I had, the skin ripped off my thumb one time. Yeah, skateboarding, how many times I hit the ground, how I'm alive, I don't know. But we used to do stuff like that, not oblivious to the danger. It's not that we were aware that there was danger here and were, taking precaution. We were oblivious to the danger, and somehow we survived. And now today I can't even watch TV without getting adrenaline shots.
You know why? Because we're closer to death now than we were then. Back then,
I'm not so sure. I think I was closer to death then.
You were shaking hands with death.
Yeah, no,
but you didn't know him personally.
Didn't know who he was. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
You had plenty of time to go. I think that's just it. At that age, you're never going to die. You've got your whole life ahead of you. What's going to hurt you now? And I think that's my theory. I'm sticking to it. But, yeah. What about you in train stories? What do you... Oh, and I do want to ask that we do a skateboard stories one day, please.
Oh, yes. Definitely skateboard stories is in there. Well, before I move on to my train stories, I don't think you can get to the BART tracks the way that you could get apparently to your metro tracks. If you can, here in the Bay Area, I don't know of any place where it is. A lot of the tracks are elevated. I mean, I suppose you could somehow, again, I've done rock climbing. I can climb a few difficult ones. I probably could scramble up there if I wanted to. It wouldn't be easy. I wouldn't avoid detection unless I did it in the middle of the night, because we are pretty heavily populated. There's very rarely are you ever alone. I can't think of any place. I mean, most of the tracks are elevated. As you go closer to the city, they do touch the ground, but it looks like they're in pretty remote areas. So I'm not sure where you could get on BART tracks here. So it's interesting to me that you could get on the tracks.
It's not easy now. Now they've done a good job because of all the accidents that has happened. And but back then when they were starting it was when we got in there, and it wasn't easy by any means to get to it. I mean, we did some jumping, ducking, crawling through some of the tunnels and so on. So yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't that easy. I shouldn't have made it that easy, but yes.
And there are people, here in the Bay Area who do die both on BART tracks and at the Amtrak train stations. Mostly, though, I think it's at the stations. I think that something crazy happens when they're boarding or disembarking, or, where they're just waiting for a train and they just jump into the area, touch that third rail, get hit or whatever. Now, you say that you put your head down on tracks. I mean, I know what you're talking about, that old Indian thing that and sorry if Indian's not the proper term, I guess Native American.
I'm an Indian, it's okay. I'm Shawnee, so I'm not offended.
There we go. But we saw, in the old Westerns, guys putting their ears on the tracks and they could hear, how far away the train was. And you did that with the metro trains? Yeah.
I was Curious George, so I definitely did that. It was a little bit of a vibration. No train, though. I did it on the I remember seeing the white covering on that third rail. So I was on the opposite side. I wasn't on the power strip side. You know what I mean? And so I do remember putting my head on that and listening just to see and smiling at my friends going, "Isn't this stupid? Yeah, get my head cut off." That whole thing, trying to make your buds laugh. If a train was coming, you'd die, Cap. Yeah, well, check this out. It was dumb. It was totally dumb. Yeah, and I didn't hear anything.
You never heard anything?
No, I thought I would. And later if we talk about natural trains, yeah, I did it again where I did hear something.
Okay.
But not with the Metro. I didn't hear anything there.
Here in the Bay Area, that would be extra stupid. I think where Hot Pink Heather and I live, yeah, it's the trains. The trains are every 15 minutes, but there's they're every 15 minutes, both directions. Where we live, there's no more transfers. There's no more splits. By the time you get out to us, the BART only goes one way and then back.
Right.
So it's every 15 minutes, but those are staggered each side. So it's basically every 7 minutes you're encountering a train. When we first moved here, we lived right next to the tracks, and we were just there a couple of nights ago for a Maundy Thursday service at the church near where we used to live, and we could hear BART pulling in and pulling out. We loved that sound. I used to love to wake up in the middle of the night and hear BART go. It's a real electric sound. But so yeah, you're going to run into a train every 7 minutes if you're on BART tracks. What was it? And it would be even worse if you were in the city or anywhere near the city. How often was it with the Metro there?
When it first started out, it was not that frequent because I'd have to look at an old map and see, but I remember that the most it did was take you from my place, which was East Falls Church Metro, that's the one by my house, to Roslyn, which is right outside of D.C., to what became the Metro Center, but that used to be like a Federal Southwest stop in D.C., and then back. It was like a giant square. Now it looks like a terribly cut pizza. It's everywhere now, and it's huge, so I'm sure it's more. But I remember it being something, maybe the time span at the very longest would be a 20-minute interval, and then the shortest maybe a 12 to 15-minute. I knew that we would have to wait quite a while for the next train to come by.
Okay. Well, that makes it a little less dumb. So
no, it doesn't.
Did you ever put coins on the track?
I did that on a regular train track. I did.
Okay. Well, why don't we move then to regular trains? Because that's Columbus did not have any type of metro line, any type of subway, any type of BART like that. So my stories are all just regular trains. So let's move to regular trains. So we did put coins on the track. Now, we put coins on the track. One is that we knew they would get flattened. But the other is that we had been told if you put a dime, I can't remember what it was. I thought there was a specific, it was either a penny or a dime. Like it couldn't be a quarter, but a dime or a penny would cause the train to derail. Had you ever heard that?
No.
Yeah, so we decided to test. We decided to test it out. It's
you want
no
to
thought
derail
of
a train, right?
Yeah, exactly. No thought of what would happen to us as we're standing close to the train as it derails.
Or the 300 people inside of the train.
Exactly. Just hey, let's see if we can derail the train with a penny. We were Mythbusters before our time, so it does not cause a train to derail. What happens though when you put a coin of any currency, any denomination, on a train track? What happens to them, Zerb?
They become so flat that it's almost as thin as a piece of paper.
Yeah, they become very thin and very smooth. I think we had a couple where you could still kind of see the mint mark, you could still see a little bit of Lincoln's face or whatever. But the ones that I had, I remember being completely smooth. I don't remember what denomination they were, but I remember I had a silver flattened coin that I carried around in my pocket for a long time. Throughout, middle school and high school. So, that was a pretty standard dumb thing for kids to do around train tracks. What other dumb things did you do, though, besides the coins there around the train tracks?
This is going to bring up some really bad wounds if my brother ever listens to this. And these are repressed memories. So if you'll excuse me, let me unrepress them. Here we go. All right. I had a heck of a time torturing my brother with any type of emotional disturbance I could do because he was my brother, and that's what you do when you have a brother. So I remember telling him, I said, Brian, don't look, man. I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want you to look. Train's coming, Brian. You can't look. He's like, no, man, don't do it. Like, Sorry, man. So I told
So
him not to look.
You tried to convince him that you were going to commit suicide by jumping in front of a train?
No, I was just going to stay on the tracks and let it hit me.
Oh, okay.
I'm
So
not
you were
stupid.
already-
I'm not jumping in front of it. What if I missed
Right,
and
right.
then all of a sudden it just, clipped me? Oh, that'll hurt. Be half the man I used to be. So I said, Brian, don't look. And then I remember the thing honking because I waited a little too long and then I finally jumped off. I mean, remember, guys, this is the dumb things I did as a kid.
Yes, not to be duplicated or replicated.
That's right. And so I did it and jumped off just in time for it. I was like, turn away, man. He did. I jumped. And then
Wow.
I hear him going, Kevin! Kevin!
Now, here again is the adult me, speaking wisdom or attempting to speak wisdom into this situation. Hot Pink Heather, her dad worked his entire life for the trains. And what he told me was, your perception is flawed when you're on the tracks. In other words, the trains are much closer than what they appear. And I'm not sure how that optical illusion works or what the principle is behind that, but they look further away than what they really are. It's the objects in the mirror maybe closer than they appear phenomenon.
Is it because of the height of the train, maybe?
I don't know if it's the height
of it?
or the way the tracks, go off into the horizon and, the parallel bars seem to bend into each other. Something I don't know what it is.
Right, that would be true because they seem to connect way down the line.
Yeah, but I've just heard that. No, that's okay. I've just heard that trains are a lot closer to you than you think, and that makes that extra dumb. If I can say that makes that extra dumb.
We're going to be doing that a lot. We're going to definitely be doing that a lot. Well, the thing that was really, really stupid on both of our parts was the fact that I convinced him that I did it wrong the first time and I was going to do it again.
Oh. Now, you mentioned jumping in front of the train. Of course, did you ever try to,
outrun
jump?
a train?
Yeah, outrun a train, jump a train. There were people in Ohio. It was it's very uncommon here. It's never happened here in California where I've been stuck on the road by a train crossing the road. I'm sure there's some places in California where that happens, but not here. In Ohio, it's everywhere that you will get stopped by a train. And there were people, the bars would come down and people would drive through and try to outrun it. I did that many times as a teen driver, never though where I thought there was any danger I was going to get hit. But I had heard of people, literally running and jumping, I think Superman style. Doesn't Superman do it in the 79? Is it 79 Superman?
Yeah, I think it is 79. Good old Christopher Reeve.
Yeah. Yeah, and he jumps in front of the train. I had heard, I know I didn't try it. I don't think any of my friends tried it, but I had heard of people doing that, trying to jump in front of a train and beat it. Did you ever engage in any of those kind of shenanigans?
Oh, gosh. I have a feeling I did, but I don't think I did it to the point where the train was close enough to cause any damage or the speed of the train was so ridiculous that I could, stick out a good 3 or 4 jumps before actually worrying about it. I don't remember doing it to the point where, like, hey, that was really stupid. That came close to, no, I can't remember. I really can't remember. I know I probably have done it, especially up at the Indian Acres area where we went camping, because we used to mess around on those tracks all the time. All the time. But no.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't remember.
What we eventually tried to do, I guess if I can try to top you here, Kevin, is that we tried to jump a train. And and this is, of all the dumb stories that I have to tell, of all the dumb things I did when I was a kid, this is probably number one. I mean, this is probably the top of the list. What had happened, so those tracks, as I said, were behind our neighbor. So I lived in Lincoln Village South. Lincoln Village was cut in half, bisected by National Route 40, what we called Broad Street in Columbus. And so my buddies lived in Lincoln Village North, and the tracks were beyond that. Well, the houses got kind of lower income, as you're getting closer to the end of Lincoln Village North, the north end, closer to tracks, and people there, there was no fence or anything. Like, I think there was a fence, but it was like one of those wire. It wasn't a chain link. It was just like a wire that you kind of find on farms or out in the woods, and it had fallen over, and it was no big deal to step over it. So we would literally skate, because we were skating at that time. It was skateboarding that led us to the train tracks.
Okay.
Because there was a ditch back there. So you always wanted to skate in a ditch. It kind of formed a little half pipe. And so we had heard that there was this ditch. We called the ditch the armpit ditch because there was a bunch of dirt in the back end of it. And so that kind of looked like hair out of an armpit. So that was, and if you know me, I don't like bathroom or body humor. And that was as gross as I could get. So we called it the armpit ditch. Some guys called it the butthole ditch. Different analogy there. I won't spell it out for you, but if you put the pieces together, you can understand why they called it that. And so we would literally just, skate down the street, make sure nobody's looking, and book it across these people's property. Just run across their property, hop that fence, and then we were on the tracks. Skating in the ditch for a while was fun, but eventually we got interested in the trains, and that's where we started, the coins. And I think we probably too put our heads on the track to see if we could hear or feel the vibration. But eventually one of us got the idea, let's jump a train. We knew that hobos did it.
Yeah.
And we decided, if a hobo does it, I can do it too, right?
And you have your stick and you have your sack, so go for it.
Yeah. You got
peanut butter and jelly
bindle
sandwich
there, so we decided to do it. So I think a couple of us had tried and been successful, and then I was there one day. Because again, different things happen. It wasn't the same group every day. So you would hear stories of, hey, Brian jumped the train. I'm going to go try or whatever. So we all tried. So we all go run. This train comes up, and there was we didn't try to jump into like an open cargo car like you see, the hobos doing. There was a car. A lot of times we would see like cargo cars that were full of automobiles on these trains, and they had these like horizontal poles on them. So we tried to jump up and grab those horizontal poles. So there was a whole group of us. So I was the last in line. By the time I went to jump, there was almost no pole left. So I managed to jump. I grab on the pole. And I'm not exactly sure why this happened. I think it was, again, because I was last in line because there wasn't a whole lot of pull there or something. But I swung where everybody else just jumped up on the pole and, latched on. I grabbed it and swung like a monkey bar. And I went under the car.
Holy moly.
Yes. I didn't let go. But the swing took my legs. I'll never forget. You know how those things happen? A second will slow down. I will never forget seeing my legs go under the car and the train wheels being right there and knowing that if I let go, my legs were gone.
Winner!
Yes.
Winner of the Stupid Train Award.
I don't know that that's something I want to win, but there you go.
God.
So... we call this the dumb things I did when I was a kid, and a few of the smart ones too. When, the swing carried me, so you swing forward and then naturally you swing back. I was smart enough that when I swung back, I let go because the fight had been taken out of me. I didn't want any more of that. So I let go, and the train was up on like a little rise. Not like a massive mountain, but just like, there's always that little, and I hit the ground and rolled down that, and I was just so thank God, exactly. That is something I credit the Lord with, because I very easily, could have lost my legs in that little endeavor, and that was the last. Stubby. Yes, absolutely. So I never tried again after that. I think some of the other fellas did try jumping a train, and to various degrees of success. Eventually, we did attract the attention of whatever, it's not the police, but whatever security is watching that part of the system, and they began to chase us. And even when we went to skate in the ditch, they began to chase us. So that was really the end of the train adventures. In that part, I do have one other train track adventure that we have, though. First, I want to see if you have any others.
Oh, goodness. The other one will kind of break into there was, again, Indian Acres camping, and all of this, mind you, is like 1980 to 1983. So 10 to 13 is when all of these happened. And so Indian Acres campgrounds, they had a a train that was made out of pop rivets and steel and just leftover rebar and stuff. That it was a park and it was a train. You had your main engine that was built out of this. This is a more of a park story, but it fits in the trains. I'll never use it for a playground story, so I have to use
it was a playground equipment, basically,
train.
Is what you're.
Yeah.
Okay. They at my daughter's school they have a car made out of pipe. Yeah.
Same?
So
Okay.
similar to that. Okay.
That's cool that they're using pipes still. Nowadays, it's always the safety plastic by Fisher Price instead of letting the kids enjoy themselves. So what there was this big train front. Then came the next thing and the next thing where you could sit in there and look around, and the last thing was the caboose. Well, I wanted to get in the front part of the train. So I don't know how I got in there, but it got to the point where I couldn't get out. My head was locked in the thing, and my legs were in the engine compartment, and my face was sticking out of a small area where you normally would put your feet in when you're sitting to drive the train. And I do not to this day. I was a skinny, scrawny kid. I was like a piece of walking bacon. I have no clue how I got in there. So I said, Brian, I'm still alive from the suicidal attempt. Would you please go get Father to get me out of the toy train? But not quite in that sentence. So what we did was he went and got Dad. My dad came back, and my dad's was throwing a fit. He didn't know what to do, so he went and got other parents. They had to come. Everybody just negotiated what to do. It came to the point where from what I remember, they had to call somebody in with a blowtorch to take certain parts of this beautiful piece of playground area, take it all apart to get me out. And I finally got out. I cried the whole rest of the weekend, and my dad was just fit to be tied. But it involved crowbars, and it involved, what do you call it? Flame torch, that thing.
A cutting tool.
Cutting torch, yeah. And I'll never forget it. And that's my last train story I have for you.
How could they have not made a TV movie out of that? It should have been, Trapped on a Train, the Kevin Zerbe story.
Yeah, that's right. Do it Zerbe's way. And Brian didn't care. He just wanted to sit and play on the swing set. He didn't care.
Yeah.
And he's
more time on the swings for me.
Yeah, that's right. He's like, I don't know. You don't care about me. Forget it.
Yeah. If they get him out, they get him out. If they don't, they don't. This is a little off topic, but I did get stuck one time as well, not on playground equipment, but in a chair at school. Do you remember those plastic chairs they used to have, and there would be a hole in the back?
Yes.
Well, I was a very small kid, and I would sit in the chair with my legs folded up underneath me. And so that, my feet are underneath my bottom. Well, as you're sitting there, my feet poke out of that hole one day. And we get up, it's recess time, and my legs kept sliding through that hole. And I just said, hey, instead of standing up out of the chair, I'm just going to slide out the hole. Well, most of me slid
out of there.
Yes. Do a little Jackie Chan move. And, it worked until we got to my shoulder blades, and they wouldn't fit through. And the teacher, as all the other kids are going out, she sees me, hey, I'm stuck in a chair. And she goes and gets the janitor. The janitor's this old, world-weary guy. He's trying to, push on me. And I remember distinctly one thing he said. He said, well, I don't want to break his back.
But we might have to.
Yeah, but better than the chair. His back will heal. But they did eventually get me out. And then some other kid was sitting that way, and the teacher said, hey, Mark, or whatever his name was, don't sit in the chair that way. Doug's got a story to tell about that. Well, I thought she wanted me to tell my story, so I started telling my story, and she said, shut up. So,
you know how I can tell you got out of the chair? You're not wearing one now.
Yeah, you can see me on camera. There is no chair around my neck. Wouldn't that be hilarious well, I don't know if hilarious is the right word, but
it's really become a party.
Sitting here today, 30-some years later, with the
chair
grade school chair around my shoulders. So, but I do have one more train story.
Please.
So those train tracks, to the north of our neighborhood, they weren't the only tracks we encountered. There was another set, probably just a little bit west down the line a little bit west. We found another set at this hill where we used to go sledding. So Ohio is not really that hilly, but it's not completely flat either. So there were some hillsides where when it snowed, we would go. They were state parks actually, and we would sled. Mm-hmm. Well, this one hill, it was a hill. You would walk up the side, you'd slide down the hill. The left side, I guess, if you're looking up the hill, was trees. And we would get up there and, well, what's beyond the trees? So we went beyond the trees and we found not just train tracks, but a train. You called it a trestle? Is that a bridge?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so you are correct.
Yeah, so there's this trestle or bridge, and it was a set of tracks, and then there was like a little catwalk next to it. And I don't know how high it was, like 20, 30 feet maybe. It looked a lot higher to us back then. But, and so you could walk out across that and look, and because it was like a grate, you could see through it, and you could see the valley or gulf or abyss or whatever it was that it crossed, and the little creek that it bridged below that. So it's a snowy day and we all get out there and we start walking across this catwalk, unsupervised. Right. And eventually one of us says, "Hey, you ever seen that movie Stand By Me?" And, yeah, so we were a little intelligent in that we realized that this was not the best place to be. We never did encounter a train there, but so it's not just that we're up in the air, but it's snowy. There's nowhere to go. And having seen Stand By Me, we all said, yeah, we ought to get off the track here, off the trestle.
Get off this thing.
So.
Oh my gosh. But wasn't that a nice walk anyway still?
I would like to go back and find that bridge. I think I have marked it on that Google Maps video I made, my old stomping grounds. I think I did locate it and find it. I would like, but it was really not a common part of my stomping grounds. It was not something I saw every day. It was, so I've never been back to see it, but I would like to go back and see it. It was neat to just, it was very quiet, and we find this snow-covered railroad trestle, and we start going across it. It was just kind of neat, but
it's
still
like
probably not the wisest
a special
move.
place or whatever,
Yeah,
so
it was kind of
important.
a little, the kind of place you'd see on a jigsaw puzzle or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So, there's one like that in Georgetown, which unfortunately I didn't get to see until I was like 17 or so. But it was part of an old train track that went through DC. And I remember at that time I had a girlfriend, and then my buddy had a girlfriend, and all four of us were out there walking on it. And we were going to go across a truss like that, a big, big bridge. And we took one step, and already the wood was starting to disintegrate, because that's how old it was. And it was like the same thing. It was like, nah, we're not going to we didn't have to worry about a train or anything, because tracks were all rusted and hadn't been used for many years. But that would have been a great dumb story had I fallen through.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that I did not, for the purpose of this podcast.
So. I'm kind of glad you didn't.
Me too.
I think that was probably the better move. So, well, Bud, that's the end of my railroad tracks, train dumb stories. How about you?
Me as well. I wish I had more for you, but I really enjoyed telling that one about my brother. I feel it, and I wish I could apologize to him. I have apologized to him a couple times for that one, and but I'll tell you what, at the time that was fun.
I'm glad I don't have any more, quite frankly. That moment when my legs swung underneath that car, again, you like a lemming just following the crowd. Hey, everybody's jumping on this train, so I'm going to do it too. Right. Yeah, it's man, oh man. Again, thanks be to God that I'm able to walk. I'm ambulatory today, and I have no desire to ever try to jump a train again, or really even mess around with tracks anymore.
Well, that's two stories you have of you hanging from something and your legs are flailing about. So I want to know, are all these shows going to have a story of you hanging from an object and surviving without getting hurt?
It is that is kind of a theme to my life, of me
just hanging in there, I guess.
Just hanging in. That's what, people have asked me, what is your skill? What's your talent? and I can hang in there. I mean, that's I'm not the smartest guy. I'm not the cleverest guy, the most artistic, the most creative, the most inventive. I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm not a scholar, a theologian, a debater, anything like that. But I can take a punch and I can hang in there. So there's going to be some more stories like that in the future.
Beautiful.
What kind of stories, Zerb, are we going to cover next time we get together?
All right, well, we'll hold off on the skateboard idea. I think, because there are plenty for that. If I may ask, how about being do you have more stories of being in a car, going for rides with your parents and doing something stupid that you shouldn't have, along with the one you told recently about hanging out the window, but other car stories?
A few. I wouldn't say they're my best. I have a few car
some
stories. Okay.
I got a couple, and I would love to hear yours. I'm sure they'll be good.
Well, let's go with that then, because now that I think about it, see, you got to get me thinking. That's why I'm so glad to have you here, because you get me thinking. Hopefully, I get you thinking too. That's the way this works. This is just two friends sitting here swapping stories back and forth. That's why I knew I needed some input on this podcast. So now that you've got me thinking, I've got quite a few car stories. I wasn't always the driver, mostly from when I was a teen, so I wasn't always the driver, but I've got some car stories that I can tell, and I'm anxious to do that. So let's schedule that for next time. Car stories.
Car stories it is. It sounds perfect. And
so
thank
car
you for the
stories.
opportunity. The opportunity to just, I feel much better now that I've let some of that out with the trains. I can now, live
a little mea
lighter.
culpa for you. You've unburdened
good.
yourself. Confession is good for the soul.
Amen. Perfect.
We all forgive you for tormenting your brother that way. That's not nearly as bad as some of the stuff my dad's son used to do to me. So,
good. This will be exciting.
So. Oh yeah, no, terrifying is more like it. But hey, bud, next time we get together, we will be telling car stories, the dumb things we did when we were kids in cars.
Amen. All right, looking forward to it, buddy.
I'm looking forward to talking about that with you too, bud. And thanks, and I'll see you again soon for more dumb things we did when we were kids.
McCoycast.